Hello, everybody. Welcome to What Culture Gaming. I'm Scott. I'm joined by Josh.
Hello.
You couldn't get a bigger contrast between
I
our shirts.
know, it's pretty good, isn't it?
But it's all right. We're going to carry on. So basically, EA have been commenting on the progression of microtransactions around the world. Things like Belgians have banned loot boxes. They've actually said that it's a criminal act to even put them in your game. Alongside China being one of the first countries to disclose the fact that games need to actually put their drop rates out there. Basically, it's an ongoing conversation, and EA's latest contribution was during a conference call where CEO Andrew Wilson said that actually he doesn't see them as gambling.
No.
He kind of slipped up when he said it and said, look, all loot boxes are gambling, and then went the other way and doubled down on the fact that no, they don't think they're gambling, and their future games will continue to have them in.
He sort of had to trip over himself to kind of explain why it's not gambling, because I mean, like the general, it's not gambling in the general sense.
In the legal
of, like,
sense.
Yeah, but the way he explains it is so, it's like, nickel and dime and trying to get him out of something, because he was talking about how you can't cash out any of the virtual currency for real money, but that's like the criminal definition of gambling.
Yeah.
That's why they get away with it,
Yeah.
for reasons like that, because it only has value the things you're gambling in the games themselves. So he said, with that strengthening him, EA as a whole are going to push ahead on loot boxes, at least in Ultimate Team.
The thing that, the thing is, you can get so lost in the weeds with this, and that's how they get away with it.
Yeah.
Because there are all the different legal definitions, and some of those legal definitions are bound geographically, like by certain countries. And they also have different ratings boards, different commissions. You can look at like Belgium. I keep saying Belgian, and it's Belgium.
It's Belgium.
Belgium, mama. Belgium have their own gaming commission ratings board.
Yeah.
We have the PEGI. America has the ESRB. China has a different one again. Like it's one of those things where we could do with a global enforcement of these rules, because they're all, you have basically, game developers have their servers. They're porting these systems out to different countries, and then they get regulated by the specific country. But yeah, the way that a lot of these companies seem to be getting away with this stuff is that they find the minutiae, the loopholes that say look, you're not, because they disclose what you're putting in, it doesn't and also what you're putting in doesn't have any real worth, like you said.
Yeah.
It's not gambling because you're not losing anything. You're not losing any money in a real sense. It ends up getting filed under the same way that something like a foil pack of cards gets put under, whether it's Magic or football cards or whatever. And it's just, but like you said, he's got to nickel and dime his way through it to even come out the other end.
They even said, because these bodies who do the regulations are obviously disparate and they're not working together, he said, we're working with all of the industry associations globally and with regulators in certain regions. So essentially, when it comes to territories like Belgium, they'll just get a slightly different game. But that's not going to affect the bottom line much, because we still get the big US audience who are buying loot boxes and contributing to a better bottom line. Because, I mean, the introduction of loot boxes and the reliance on them helped them make another $1 billion in sort of profit.
Yeah.
And we've seen this with Activision. Jules did a great video written by
you.
Yours truly. That went into sort of how Activision make very few games now.
Yes.
They rely on 3 or 4 a year, but they're making more profit than ever and more revenue than ever because of loot boxes. So these things are never going to go away. Publishers, at least as we know them, publishers are never going to give them up without a fight. They're going to find ways to do it, like
That's
Andrew Wilson and EA are.
There's so much money that's behind them, and if you're cooking the books and you're on the business side of things, it's madness to not include microtransactions in everything. Even Rockstar, even Strauss Zelnick, Take-Two's main honcho, said that look, GTA Online makes it's something like $7 million a day, just in microtransactions, just in the shark cards. Hence the fact that Rockstar haven't released any other games, other than Red Dead, and they helped with L.A. Noire, and we're finally getting Red Dead 2. But they were just we can subsist the whole company, all those studios, on the microtransaction part of GTA Online. Now that is insane.
It is. I mean, look to a game like Fortnite, which doesn't have sort of loot boxes in the same way EA implements them, but relies on microtransactions. And that made, I think it was in the last quarter, or maybe just the last month, made $249 million, and that's a free-to-play game. So a game which costs you $60 up front to buy, and then Ultimate Team packs later on.
Obviously not in Fortnite's case.
Crazy. Well, they
have that too. Yeah. But the overall thing to take away is just that on the business side, they don't want to let go of this. And we've seen EA yield a little bit. With Battlefront 2, they just literally turned the system off. It was so awkward. Obviously, that game suffered the consequences and just wasn't a very smooth product. But they've designed a cosmetic store and put it back in. We saw them kind of shake a bit on Need for Speed as well. They ended up reducing the way that it works in there. But the thing with the geographical restrictions is it means that EA have to be very, very careful with anything that goes anywhere near a pay-to-win mentality.
Yeah.
Because it means that that region is going to be locked out of potential progression. It means that if you're in an online space and maybe you've paid for anything that could be construed as an advantage, then depending on where you're playing, you're going to have a disadvantage.
That's very true.
Which is a weird way for the industry to roll out its games. Because that's the whole thing in Belgium. Like, you know, they've said that including microtransactions in a game is a criminal offence.
Yeah.
Like, they've gone that far. And so they're going to have to make it so that at least Belgium's, why can't I say Belgium? Belgium's version of the game is going to be demonstrably different from the one that everybody else gets. And we're seeing that in China too. Overwatch has to disclose the drop rates for what you're going to get in the loot boxes. And it's a bit of a mess. And there's also the fact that, like, the more that you change one geographical region, depending on how these conversations advance, then that slowly changes the progression or the balance of the entire game.
Yeah.
Like I said, we've got 2 countries at least so far, and we've got a whole lot of stuff happening in South America. We saw the whole thing in Hawaii where one of their senators was, like, investigating the fact that it was this gambling casino for kids. And the more countries that sign on to say that these things are illegal, the more the progression changes in a certain game, depending on the mechanics, and the more the overall balance changes, the more the overall quality of the game changes.
Yeah.
So,
well, I guess it comes down to trust, I suppose. Do you trust them to, you know, make it a balanced playing field and sort of pare back a microtransaction, or just make it, you know, like this weird hellscape where some people can buy their way to the top and some people just don't have it because it's a criminal offence in their country.
In certain places.
Yeah.
I think my thing is always going to come down to, I think, like, the thing is, like, the absolute business reality is that these things make a lot of money. As much as we want to talk about the fact that they get in the way of certain games' qualities, they make too much money for them to turn away. So there are obviously huge swaths of people that love the idea of buying their way through games or buying additional cosmetics or whatever it is. So my whole thing going down to, depending on how they're implemented in games, is I think they should be in separate playlists.
Right.
But I mean, yeah, I always think that if you're basically targeting the people that the industry calls the whales, they basically have an industry term for people who have incredible amounts of disposable income, and a lot of the people on the industry side tend to refer to them as whales because they can target them and they have 10 grand to spare on X number of components. Put all those people with all those mentalities, put them in a separate playlist and let them just fight it out. All they want to do is pay to have a go and be the biggest, you know, fish in the pond kind of thing anyway. So give them their own pond. It's fine. And then you get your business reality. You can have all of that. You can milk them as much as you want. They clearly don't care. And let the rest of us have our own separate playlist.
Yeah.
We've had casual and ranked playlists for years. And if you're not going to move away from, you know, the gambling mentality, then go full steam into it. Like, you can't keep doing this half-arsed Andrew Wilson, well, it's kind of fair. It even literally says it's fun and fair for the players. No, it's not. And, like, it's stupid. So you need to separate these things out. It's the only way to go forward as far as I'm concerned.
It should be said, though, Andrew Wilson was specifically talking about FIFA Ultimate Team, although he sort of broached loot boxes in general. I can't imagine they're going to go all in on loot boxes in things like Battlefield or Battlefront because of the huge backlash. But obviously, FIFA Ultimate Team is an integral part of that FIFA experience, and people seem to enjoy it.
Well, there was that massive, after Battlefront 2 though, there was that notable groundswell of people of the hashtag being like, fix FIFA. Where a lot of people who have put up with this stuff since, I mean, it was in the UEFA Champions League games before it was in FIFA. A lot of people who just put up with it and assume that it's the norm. Once you introduce the fact that, hey, the game doesn't need to be made like this, a lot of people are like, actually, yeah, I'm spending a lot of money on, like, rolling the dice and it's not working out. So, whatever, EA's stance seems to be standing firm on the fact that it makes so much money that they're basically not going to move away from it, and they think it's completely acceptable, and Andrew Wilson's going to keep steamrolling ahead.
It's fine, Scott, because he said he's going to be more open about it, which means he's going to be lovely from now on. That's what that means.
Yeah, he's not.
I'm going to be more open. He's going to be more fair. How?
I don't know. I mean, there's not a single part of the way that he approaches these systems in the games that makes me think that he's put the players first, even though he talks about putting the players first. He's very much an investor-fueled man. I'm sure he's a lovely man, but he's very much ticking the boxes for the investors and not putting the players first, as far as I can see. But whatever, you guys can let us know what you think down in the comments below. Are EA right to be charging ahead with this thing, considering how much money it makes, or do you want to see them take a more, I don't know, philosophical, philanthropic stance going forward? Either way, I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com.
I've been Josh from WhatCulture.com.
I will catch you guys soon.
Bye.
Goodbye.